over 3 consecutive weekends, a team of your CE and your CASS lecturers organized for the second time a series of research skills workshops that targeted your CE and your CASS masters and PhD students who attended in free shifts following their level of study programs and the stages of their research works they have to carry out. These workshops were hosted by HC Trust Training Center at Kigali Genocide Memorial under the support of the Building the Cultures of Peace in the Rwandan Schools Network, BCPN. This second phase was organized following the success of the first phase and recommendations from the participants. The objectives of this phase were to provide students with practical hands-on support in qualitative and quantitative data analysis and reporting and writing, to empower students to use state-of-the-art reference management software, especially Mendeley, and to provide space for students to network, give and take constructive feedback, and share experiences about their research. While the first phase covered a broad range of research topics, the second phase was more practical in nature. It covered 3 broader areas, namely qualitative data analysis, whereby tools like NVivo target are used, quantitative data analysis with a focus on tools like SPSS and Stata, academic report writing and referencing programs, whereby the use of Mendeley is highlighted. Associate Professor Sylvester, who is the principal investigator of Building the Cultures of Peace in Rwandan Schools Network, got more involved in these important activities. We were blessed to have an interview with him. He sheds more light on the workshops.
The idea of organizing these research skills seminars for both masters and PhD is really an answer to one of the purposes of the network, building cultures of peace in Rwandan schools. As a reminder, this network, building the cultures of peace in Rwandan schools, is a joint project bringing together the University of Rwanda College of Education, but also HC Trust, which is our host today, and the University of East Anglia in the UK. One of the purposes of this network is to decolonize knowledge and also to decolonize knowledge production, because it has been found that the vast majority of scholars, publishers, authors on Rwanda are only from outside. And in this network, we want to build the research capacity of Rwandan researchers so that they can also have a voice in the academic terrain, especially when it comes to issues pertaining to Rwanda. In other words, this network is committed to a view that researchers from the global south, in this case Rwanda, have to be empowered enough for them to conduct robust research with the idea of coming up with robust findings so that also they can publish in higher impact factor journals. And we think that masters and PhD students are the ones who are aggressive in the research industry. That's why actually we decided to organize these research seminars for masters and PhD students. On a different note, I have also to admit that drawing on my experience as a university lecturer and as a professor, I have observed a noticeable gap in terms of research for our students, be it masters and PhD. And so I took the initiative of incorporating this aspect of research seminars into the grant which was meant to create this network. That's another reason of focusing on these research seminars.
Who are your participants in these seminars?
Thank you very much. In these seminars, we have two categories of participants. One, we have masters and PhD students from the University of Rwanda College of Education, and two, we have also masters and PhD students from the College of Arts and Social Sciences. In those two categories, allow me to highlight that we have those who are beginners and also those who are at advanced stage. When we say beginners, we are referring here to masters or PhD students who have produced their proposals and have developed some research materials. And the second category is those who have collected data, are busy analyzing those data, and possibly some of them might have even started to conduct analysis. So we have organized these seminars for those two categories to allow each category to understand what is required in terms of producing a quality research project.
The University of Rwanda has got 6 colleges with postgraduate students in different programs. Why did you prefer to train only those from your CE and your CASS?
Thank you very much. You are right. The University of Rwanda has got different colleges. But in this network, for these research seminars, we decided purposely to focus on the College of Education, the College of Arts and Social Sciences, because the network operates more broadly in the area of social sciences. The network operates within the context of social sciences. And as an impetus of saying, our network is committed to promote peace. Peace in schools at all levels, primary, secondary, and higher education. It's a way of saying we want you guys, masters and PhD students, to be at peace with your piece of work, to be at peace with your research project, be it masters and PhD. Possibly, maybe, one could also think about a network catering for the research needs of other colleges. For instance, the College of Medicine and Veterinary Medicine and other colleges. But this one is focusing mainly on the College of Arts and Social Sciences and the College of Education, broadly social sciences.
Why have you decided to organize this Phase 2 workshop while a similar one was organized 6 months ago?
Thank you very much. I like saying, as a university professor, I like saying that research is an art, and art requires training. Last October 2021, we organized Phase 1 workshop. I would argue that this Phase 1 workshop was predominantly theoretical. We provided research skills, research knowledge in terms of theories, various theories that can allow these masters and PhD students to understand really what it means to produce a proposal, what it means to write a literature review, what it means to write a paper. And after that Phase 1 workshop, we conducted an evaluation. And in that evaluation, it was found that participants expressed a great need of having a follow-up research skills methods workshop, which this time would be practical. This suggests that Phase 2 that we have organized now is a hands-on research skills workshop. In other words, we are providing now PhD and master's students with practical skills about analyzing both qualitative data and quantitative data. It's a hands-on skills workshop. In terms of qualitative data analysis, we are teaching them how to use softwares like NVivo, Target. We are trying them to see how those two softwares can allow you to reduce a heap of transcript to a manageable data set on the basis of which you can produce a report, on the basis of which you can write findings. In terms of quantitative data analysis, we are teaching them about SPSS. SPSS is the most commonly used software in social sciences. And in those two orientations, we are giving them materials In terms of qualitative data, for instance, we are giving them a transcript. We are teaching them how you can engage with the transcript, make codes, how you can code the key ideas from the transcript, how from the codes you can have bigger categories, and how from categories you can have themes, and now how from those themes you can write a memo, which is a description of the core idea of the theme. And on the basis of that memo, you can now write your findings chapter.
Are there any specific objectives of this second phase?
Obviously. The first objective of this phase 2.1 is to allow our researchers, PhD and master's students, be organized in terms of their references or their library. A software is designed for that, which is called Mendeley.
Yes.
And the first objective of this workshop is to allow them to be familiar with Mendeley, which allows them really to organize their library, their references, and use the in-text references very easily using APA, American Psychological Association, but also produce a reference list at the end very smoothly. That's the first objective. The second objective is to equip them with skills for using the software quantitative data analysis such as NVivo and Target. The third one is to empower them with knowledge, skills, and attitudes for organizing their quantitative data and analyzing those data using SPSS. Not only producing descriptive analysis, but also producing inferential analysis, testing theories, testing hypotheses. And the last objective, but not least, is to allow them write up those findings in an academic standard format, what we call an academic style, an academic jargon. In other words, being able to produce a manuscript, a publishable manuscript, drawing on qualitative findings, but also drawing on quantitative findings.
How do you assess the achievements of these objectives? Do you think they have been achieved or no?
Thank you very much. Overall, I would argue that we have achieved our objectives. We have achieved our objectives. I've been participating in these workshops for both masters and PhD. But I must say at the same time that it wasn't an easy task, because we assumed that our participants had prerequisites in place for objectives to take place. In other words, we assumed that they had a strong background to understand qualitative data analysis, quantitative data analysis, but sometimes we had to come back to various definitions, the various prerequisites, and this has been time consuming. But I can argue authentically and confidently that we have achieved really to a great extent our objectives of empowering students to be conversant with analyzing quantitative and qualitative data.
Do you think there will be in the near future other opportunities to organize such workshops, which according to the students are extremely important?
Thank you very much. You are right, our participants really still express a great need of having other sessions. As I said initially, research is an art and one has to be trained. But also research is so big. It's like an ocean. You know, they have swum a few miles, they should swim additional miles.
Yes.
I have to admit that for the purposes of the network, our funds are ending with March, but we have in view to apply for additional funding for organizing other steps of these seminars. And in that case, what we would focus on is to help these students, masters and PhD, produce good quality articles and targeting journals with a high impact journal, a high impact factor, sorry. That will be the focus really. Making them good writers, making them good authors, good publishers. That's an idea that I have as a university professor who still work on different grant proposals. That's what I have in mind, and I'm keen to work with colleagues to secure additional funding to achieve that purpose.
Have you got any recommendation you may make to the participants of these workshops?
Thank you very much. One recommendation. Being trained is one thing, using the acquisitions from the training is another one. I would recommend that after this training, our participants really get good use of the skills they have acquired to make good progress with their research projects. Another recommendation I have is to say we have shown them various techniques in qualitative data analysis, but also quantitative data analysis. They have to go now and do additional reading. They have to go outside there and make deep research, expand, even go beyond. And there are various now resources in terms of research methods. They have access to the internet. They can go to YouTube and watch videos about different techniques. They can rehearsal. They can do other activities, exercises. Another recommendation I have is to share what they have acquired with other people. They are doing masters, they are doing a PhD. It's not everyone who wanted to attend this workshop who has got the opportunity to do so. We had several requests, but we had to be selective, understandably. So I would say that another recommendation I have for them is to go out and share. Share what they have learned. Share with others. Share also with civil society organizations where they work, you know, in their place of work. Share with them. That's the idea of disseminating knowledge, knowledge sharing, so that really our project reaches a bigger audience and also happens to have a continuity.
In his presentation, Mr. Gonzave Nzeyimana brought to the attention of participants on making citation and reference management in academic writing, types of reference management software, how to generate bibliography, how to highlight and annotate an article, etc.
Many ways of citing sources from your research. The citation site sometimes depends on the academic discipline involved. When you do mathematics or medicine, you have some style which you can use.
Mr. Leon Hawamvura and Dr. Betty Duwamwezi went further with the same topic. They focused on reference managers, features of the reference managers, and reference management tools. They also conducted practical sessions for the participants to be familiarized with the use of Mendeley, which is a useful free reference manager.
You have your colleagues who have spent nights and days and they have produced some documents from which you can refer to, isn't it? Yeah. Whatever you are doing, either it is a given assignment, it's an academic paper that you are writing, you have to refer to what others have done. Maybe I will be lucky also to talk with you the academic integrity with anti-plagiarism software that we have. Sometimes if you take a paper or a work and you pass it through academic anti-plagiarism software, and you find that it has 0% of similarity index, that is not research. To mean that you are supposed to refer to what others did. So I have books from India, from China, from Korea, from Rwanda, from South Africa. Now, I want to use them in my work. You see? Yes. I'm used to asking myself, but people who have been producing reports before the technology arises, how have been doing this? So, but for you and I, we are lucky because it's as if everything now is available for us. Softwares that will help us to gather all of those informations from various sources, use them in our documents, but we give you credit by the end of what others did.
We have different software. Of course, there are those open, and there are those which are commercial. You may know, most of the time we use Zotero and Mendeley. They are open source, you can download it. I think you will soon download it or you have it. There are plenty of them. But there are those which are easy, user-friendly, and some others are somehow complicated. When it comes to commercial, we have EndNote, which is a very good one, but it's expensive. Sometimes universities, mainly in our countries or maybe in Africa, they don't afford it. It's very well structured, but it is expensive. Now we are going to look at how we can generate the bibliography. Do you remember what is bibliography? When you are writing, go back to that stock of quotes and see which can support your argument. Don't copy and paste. You can even use the idea without, you can even sometimes even just use a vocabulary from that sentence. Only one vocabulary. Yes. And you use it in your own way. Unless it is a copyright, whatever thing, concept or notion. If it's a concept where the author has the ownership in the copyright, you also have to acknowledge that copyright. Even if it is one word. It's like sometimes we use photographs. You go on the internet, there are plenty of photographs. There are those which are available in Creative Commons. For these ones, you are free to use them. You can modify them, you can share them, but there are those which are copyright protected. You have to get the permission from the author. That's also something. After this one, I won't spend much time on this because you will do exercise, practical exercise on Mendeley with Leon.
You are adding manual entry. You think on the author, the title, and the year of publication, and the publisher. Is that clear? Let us try to fit that information. You can either do it randomly, you can use any given book as well as any website. So let us do that quickly before we
continue our presentations and our practical activities related to research skills. Today we are happy to be with Dr. Danny Maneiro from the College of Education and Sylvester.
Dr. Danny Maneiro elaborated on qualitative data analysis. He differentiated qualitative research and quantitative research, gave an overview of common qualitative research approaches. He also briefed participants on qualitative research design, qualitative data collection, qualitative data analysis techniques, steps of qualitative data analysis, etc. Dr. Dan also gave practical activities to his trainees to improve their qualitative data analysis skills.
Qualitative approach is the collection and analysis and interpretation of comprehensive narrative and vision. I'm insisting on this vision because sometimes people think that qualitative is just analyzing only interviews, focus group, and so on. No, you can even analyze when you take a film of children playing there. They're not talking, but they are doing things, so you can analyze that, and that is qualitative approach. So you analyze those narrative and the visual to get insight into particular phenomena. That means you want to understand the phenomena, then you analyze those narrative or visual data so that you understand how the phenomena is happening. So quantitative data, it takes the form of interview transcript, document, open-ended responses, images, videos, and so on, your result. If you have this, then you can write something. Then you sit and start writing. First of all, when you are writing up your result, there is one heading where you describe the categories and how they are connected without interpreting.
Yeah. Sometimes you have a student who forget to link the literature to the interpretation. So it's very important to come again back to the literature when you are discussing your results. It's also very important to look at the silences, because the data should be, you should notice some silences in the data. Why are people silent about something?
Yeah.
So it's very important also.
What has not been talked about?
Yeah.
That could also be meaningful to you. Yeah, what has not been talked about? Why? Why? So it can also be very, very relevant to you.
Yeah.
So one other thing I want to add, Dan, allow me, is about coding. Dan talked about having previously defined codes, okay? And that's one possibility. And then generating codes from the transcript. I hope you are familiar with the deductive-inductive approach. Are you familiar with that? Are you familiar with that? Deductive approach means you have actually your codes, and then you are coding your data according to those codes. In other words, when you go to a transcript, before going to the transcript, you have already some codes.
Prior codes.
Previously established, prior codes. Then you got your data with those codes, and you see how these codes are fitting in the data. These codes can be created drawing on a theory or theories that you have engaged with. Okay? That is deductive coding. And Dan said, but this can mislead you because not all things will fit your theories.
Yeah.
So the second way is to say, let me go into the data, read, and find out what's going on in this data, and generate codes from the data themselves. That is inductive coding. The third one is a combination of the two approaches. Is that okay? You have your prior codes, previously established, but you're not blinded by them. You're also giving the opportunity for data to talk and to generate codes as well. Okay? So it's a combination of deductive and inductive. We call it abductive coding. So you use the two approaches. But of course it depends always on the supervisor, to see how you go about this, but also the nature of the topic at hand,
Right? Sometimes people, when they use some words which are complicated, but when there is something which is very easy to. Now, we have, my colleague is going to introduce you on how you put this in software. But before we go there, we are going to give you some document which you will be using. Actually, this is data, which is talking about the use of information communication technologies among children with autism spectrum disorders. We are going to give you those documents. What are you going to do? You are going to read them carefully. Like, I don't know what you will do. Will you underline? Will you write with a pen? Will you write with your computers? I don't know. Then you will create code. You will create categories. You will label those categories. But I don't know if it will be this is a better result.
We approached Dr. Danny Maneiro and we asked him about the take-home from his presentation.
Here he was talking about qualitative data analysis.
What is it?
Actually, it is the way of treating and interpreting data which is collected through a qualitative method, the data which is non-numerical data, things like narrative, things like images, pictures, and things like that. So we're learning how do you organize them and how do you interpret them so that you can build something from those data.
Can you please initiate us to interpretation of data using the process you are talking about?
Yeah, actually here we're talking about the process of collecting data. That is why we're talking about the method that are used when you are collecting data and how do you organize that data and the approaches which you use when you are organizing those data. Then we talked about steps through which you pass when you are analyzing data. Here we're talking about the 5 steps where you have first to read the data, I mean to read the transcript which you collected, to look at the pictures, to analyze them. Then second, we talked about how to code, what we call coding process. That means finding some ideas, some concepts which are very important and very relevant. Then how do you put those concepts together? That means those code to build what we call categories.
Yes.
Then how do you create relations between those categories which will show actually your result of your research? So those are the things we're talking about until when you write the document which is showing the relations between the categories and which we call thesis. Those are in a few words what we were talking about in this.
What are the learning outcomes from your presentation?
Yeah, actually from the presentation, a student who participates in the presentation will have the capacity of, first of all, do the transcript of data. That means when you conduct interview, when you conduct a focus group, you have to do what we call transcription of those elements which you collect. Then you will be able to organize them by coding and getting those ideas and the concepts that are important. The most important competency the student has to acquire is how do you put together those codes and create what we call themes. Because that is where there is a big work. That is the pillar of the research in qualitative research. Then how do you create the relation between those themes which will make a kind of result from the data which you were collected using different methods. So I think those are the learning outcome which has to come out this seminar and the discussion I had with the students.
Do you think your learning outcomes have been achieved or there is a long way to go?
Of course they have been achieved because we were discussing with them, we did some exercises, and the way they were doing those exercises was showing that the learning outcome were achieved. Because when you look at how they were performing during the exercise, during the discussions, I can say that the learning outcome have been achieved.
Mr. Tunis' contribution to the workshop has been practical sessions conducted with participants in order to familiarize them with qualitative data analysis using tools like F for transcript to transcribe the record, and target to analyze the transcribes.
As I said, target have two options, or three. One option, you can download the target into local machine. You install it, but it is in a single user mode. It is only you who will use target. The second, you can use target platform. You register account, then this has advantage to use in collaborative research. You are here in Rwanda, you collect data, but you need someone else in the UK or in Uganda, wherever, to participate in the analysis.
Mr. Tunis gives in the following interview a general picture of his presentation.
My role is to facilitate students of PhD and masters to understand qualitative data analysis using software applications.
I think there are many softwares of the kind. Which do you want to talk about exactly?
Yeah, as you said, there are many software applications that are related to data analysis.
Yes.
But I selected the two tools that are helpful to the students and that are free for them to afford. I selected the one which is called for transcript, which is helping the researchers to transcribe the audio or video record from qualitative data collections like interview, focus group discussion, and many others. And also I selected target software, which uses to analyze those transcripts that are generated by the first software.
Dr. Faustin Mutwarasibo took participants through academic writing and writing for publication, focusing on rhetorical moves in writing a research paper, dissertation, or thesis. He articulated on the IMRAD format in scientific work, information structure in research papers, dissertations, or theses, like rhetorical moves used in introduction, methodology, discussion, and in conclusion.
You have to make sure that there is a balance in your chapters. You can't have, like, journal introduction is likely to be short, but you can't have, like, literature chapter, you organize it depending on the information you have. I'm pretty sure that if you have a lot of information, you have to sit down and say, this is like an introductory part of my literature review, definition of key terms, and then another thing that shouldn't worry you, when you have produced this long proposal, okay? All these concepts, the main ideas you have come up, the quotations you tend to use will be part of the literature review chapter. The rest, up to how long should be, normally there's no margin. Okay, I can't say it's 5 pages or 10 pages or number of words. It depends on the topic you have. So that's why there's no formula that really can apply everywhere.
Dr. Diambaje addressed issues related to quantitative data analysis. He shed more light on what quantitative data analysis is, indicated the types of quantitative data used in assessment, took the participants through descriptive statistics utilizing Microsoft Excel and SPSS. He also introduced the participants to inferential statistics and indicated how quantitative data should be presented.
What is quantitative data analysis? We are saying that a quantitative data analysis is all about analyzing number-based number of children per household. You are specialized in which area? Sorry? gender development. Maybe you might be counting number of cases of violence, isn't it? It's all about number-based data. So analyzing number-based data, of course, this include what we call categorical and numerical data. That's what I'm going to explain, using the various statistical techniques. So I talked about descriptive and inferential. So then we are saying the two main that I already described are descriptive and inferential. Of course, when we say quantitative data analysis, we are also concerned about what we call making sense of numbers. Making sense of numbers.
Thank you so much. I would say that my session revolved around quantitative data analysis. You know, when we talk of quantitative data analysis, first of all, you need to understand that what is a quantitative data and how do we get this quantitative data. So my presentation revolved around what tools that lead to the collection of quantitative data, that is one. How do you organize the data once these are already collected? Three, how do you analyze? You see, you collect, you organize, then you analyze your data. The moment these data are analyzed, how do you present them? But how do you even go beyond the data presentation? Then you reach the important stage, which is actually making sense of your data. Yeah. You know, sometimes you can be pleased by having a very nice table filled of numbers, but what is the meaning behind these numbers? Mm-hmm. So I was actually trying to show to the candidates that it is important that they do not only be like pleased to have numbers, but also going beyond the numbers to make sense, to make the meaning, or why not even predict? Because in the end of the day, these are researchers. They are going to make practical and policy recommendation. Mm-hmm. So to arrive at that stage, it's important that the moment they have the data at hand, they try to make sense, meaning behind the meaning. You can even make a sound, practical recommendation that can be bought by the implementers, or why not even by policymakers. The second important stage, which was important in my facilitation or in my presentation, was to show to this candidate that statistics is an important tool towards quantitative data analysis. Mm-hmm. Not all of them have, of course, a science background, but I was at least trying to show to them that statistics is a vital tool. Mm-hmm. Whether you are doing languages, whether you are doing sciences, but at least some basic knowledge of statistics are important, because mathematics or statistics do really provide quantitative measurements, either in research but also in decision making. Mm-hmm. The third point that I tried to tackle was to show to them that depending on the type of data that they have, but also depending again on the ultimate goal or the ultimate objective of the study, there are statistics tools that can be used to help them in data analysis. And one of these is called Statistical Package for Social Sciences. Mm-hmm. But again, the Statistical Package for Social Sciences, known as SPSS, is not a magic bullet. It is going to produce what you have inputted, what you have actually put in that software. So I was telling to them that filling the software with data, it is one thing. But it's important to know what data are you inputting in the software and what kind of output you would want from the software, so that you don't get confused yourself or you confuse the reader of your research findings. So I was showing actually to them that it's important that they know the kind of data they have, but also they think ahead about the type of output they would need from SPSS. Not just saying, I will use SPSS for what? So that was also another third point that I tried to tackle, and they are now doing the practical part of the SPSS.
Okay, you worked on quantitative data analysis, but I think there is also what they call qualitative data analysis. What is the difference between these two analyses?
Thank you so much. I would say that the quantitative data analysis deals with numbers. It deals with numbers. It deals with values. While when you go for qualitative data analysis, you are dealing with opinions. You are dealing with views. For instance, people say this. These are their feelings. But when you are dealing with quantitative, it is like the people's opinions are translated into numbers. For instance, how many people agree, how many people disagreed, how many people value this and that, how many people chose maybe this color and not this one. So you are saying that when we go for quantity, it means we have data, we have values that are converted into numerical values. They are numbers. While you are going for qualitative, you are doing with views, with opinions that are normally reported either using direct quotes or paraphrase. But also I was showing to them that it is possible for some qualitative data to be converted into numerical values, especially when you count how many people maybe made this statement, or how many people maybe had the views that align with this statement. So in fact, if we are to establish kind of a borderline between quality and quantitative, I would say that the qualitative deals purely with views and opinions, while quantitative deals with people's view or deals with data that are tangible, that might be manipulated, that can be translated into numbers.
Reverend Dr. Innocent Yakaremye provided insights on the techniques of data analysis using qualitative methods like thematic analysis, content analysis, ground theory analysis, narrative analysis, discourse analysis, or critical discourse analysis, among others. It is what he highlighted in the interview he was kind enough to offer to us.
We are helping the postgraduate students into the journey of doing their research, preparing their dissertation, especially in the group of PhD students who are writing their thesis. So we are helping, just accompanying them in that journey. Today we're exploring the qualitative analysis. So seeing how they are preparing, analyzing their data, and how they are doing it. So those, some are already advanced, others are still doing it, others are behind. But we are trying to help each person to his or her level of working.
What are the main points that participants can draw from your presentation?
The participants can draw from my presentation some insights concerning the techniques of analyzing data using qualitative methods. So especially the thematic analysis, content analysis. This is what we have discussed today. Actually, they will take something like take home from there. Understanding that the analysis is not something that you start when you are at that step of analysis. You start thinking of it right from the beginning of your research. And when you reach that step, you know what you are doing. But in the beginning, when students are preparing their research, they already think of how they will analyze their data. And this helps them to be conversant when they reach that step of analyzing. So we are just, some of them are at that level of analysis, but help them to think of analyzing their data. Others are just in the beginning of writing their proposal, and when they are writing their proposal, they have to prepare how they will behave when they reach that stage of analyzing that.
Dr. Venice Ndizera emphasized on qualitative research design, measure approaches to qualitative research, types of qualitative data collection methods, questions for qualitative interviews, focus on qualitative questions, qualitative data analysis with a focus on approaches of data analysis, tools for helping analytical procedures, terms used in qualitative data analysis, principles of qualitative data analysis, analyzing observations. Participants also learned how to choose and use the computer software, qualitative analysis with the software, uses of computer software in qualitative research, etc.
Especially when we are talking about theories, every theory has its own assumptions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the simple way of understanding this is actually any statement you make is full of assumptions. Any statement. If I tell you that I'm going to meet you, let's say you call me, you are in Nyabugogo, and I tell you, I promise you that I'm going to meet you there in 10 minutes. What could be the assumptions of that? Maybe there will be no traffic jam, the rain is not going to fall. All those are assumptions. So every statement we make about life carries some assumptions.
Maybe in a simple way, Qualitative is really funny way of putting it.
Especially when we are talking about theories, every theory has its own assumptions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the simple way of understanding this is actually any statement you make is full of assumptions. Any statement. If I tell you that I'm going to meet you, let's say you call me, you are in Nyabugogo, and I tell you, I promise you that I'm going to meet you there in 10 minutes. What could be the assumptions of that? Maybe
As pointed out by Dr. Jolie Rubagiza in her presentation on academic report writing, writing academic reports requires the researcher's attention so that all important components of an effective research paper, dissertation, or thesis be incorporated, well structured, and written. A report should tell us what the study was about or came to be, should communicate a clear sense of the social and historical context of the setting, should provide a natural history of the inquiry, what was done, by whom and by who, the methods, how key concepts emerged over time, which variable appeared and disappeared, which cause led to important insights. According to her, a good report should provide basic data, preferably in forecast form, like vignettes, organized narratives, photographs, data display, etc. Furthermore, researchers should articulate their conclusions and describe their broader meaning in the world of ideas and action they affect.
Introduction. What should be in your introduction? Here we're saying that there is, within your introduction chapter, you should be able to answer what is your thesis about. I don't know if it's this time or when. To really explain your thesis or your research, it can also be very difficult. It can be difficult if someone asks you, what is your research about? I used to find it very, very difficult to answer. Because you have to find something to practice and keep on remembering. So that when people ask you, okay, you're doing a PhD, what are you researching on? What is your, when you start?
The contribution of Dr. Hernandez Diambaje together with Dr. Ewomugabo evolved around quantitative data analysis. Dr. Diambaje made an overview of what is meant by quantitative data, types of quantitative data used in assessment, and descriptive statistics utilizing Microsoft Excel, while Dr. Mugabo gave practical work related to the theoretical overview given by his colleague. He also made an introduction to SPSS and conducted practical activities using it. The contribution of Dr. Hernandez Diambaje together with Dr. Mugabo evolved around quantitative data analysis. Dr. Diambaje made an overview of what is meant by quantitative data, types of quantitative data used in assessment, and descriptive statistics utilizing Microsoft Excel, while Dr. Mugabo gave practical work related to the theoretical overview given by his colleague. He also made an introduction to SPSS and conducted practical activities using it.
You need to know which type of data you are going to collect. Whereupon, maybe planning a statistic tool. Joseph Nadia, basically.
From my own research and something that maybe I do with my students, and then the questionnaire for science teachers. This was a work done with science teachers. And since most of you are already planning to carry out a mixed method consisting of collecting both quantitative and qualitative data, commonly when you will read or you have already read the building of a questionnaire, developing a good questionnaire, you start normally, but it is not compulsory. Start by, if you are designing a questionnaire, working with people, at least know those who know who they are, the bibliographical data.
PremiumBeat.com. From the presentation made by Dr. Danny Maneiro, PhD students noted the difference between quantitative and qualitative design. They were tipped on techniques of organizing and presenting quantitative data with a focus on line listing, frequency distribution tables, and cross-tabulation, techniques of summarizing quantitative data, especially measures of central tendency or location, measures of spread or dispersion, among others.
And I think this, according to what you presented in the morning, these are where most of you are going to limit your presentations. Then you go to thematic analysis and so on and so forth. But now, let's now mention like kind of reminder of what we discussed last time. Quantitative and qualitative designs. I think you know that. In quantitative, we are looking for numbers, numerical data, statistics. And how do we see it? From the such objectives and such questions. The questions we ask, are we asking about numbers? Or we are asking about words?
Dr. Foster Mutwarasiwo made another presentation based on a sample of a research paper he co-authored, whereby he showed the linkages that normally exist between different important parts that make up the structure of a paper.
Something you have to bear in mind is that whenever you are working on your dissertation, every part should be tied up together. If you bear that in mind, things will be quite easy. Linking up all different parts, what does it mean? There should be a link between the title of your study, the research problem, the aims, the methodology used, the literature have consulted or previous research, the discussion part, okay, the analysis or findings, discussion part, and then the conclusion. Everything should link up with any other part.
Presenting on qualitative data analysis, Dr. Jean-François Maneiro focused on coding questionnaire items in SPSS, linking the analysis to the research question, types of data, categorical and continuous variables, checking assumptions before running the test, parametric versus non-parametric test, transforming variables to the new variables, and made a case study to demonstrate correlation, chi-square, independent sample t-test, analysis of variables, ANOVA, linear regression and multiple regression, and reporting results using the APA format.
But purposefully, when we work out those calculations, what is the difference between the mean and the average? Average, yes?
I think the difference is in the way you find the, for example, the mean is the summation of all units divided by the number of units.
That is the mean?
Yes. Why the average may be the between the low and the high, the lowest and the high.
Great. I guess that my brother understood you. Actually, when you talk about the mean, you take into consideration all items. You don't ignore. That kind of saying, I'm taking the biggest plus minus the smallest and divided by 2, that is not the mean. You are working out the averages. But now when you consider all items, you are dealing with the mean. So look at the examples. I'm not going to use the examples which are in the notes because we are rushing. I'm just giving examples quickly. Simple. So now, suppose that you are having this data. That of course we are going to see the mean when we have grouped data and when you have ungrouped data. So now, suppose that you are having this data, you are having 5, maybe you gave to your students a test. They got 5, and it is out of 10. Some got 5, others got 0, another one got 3, another one got 1, another one got 10. One got 5. Another one, there is also another one who got 1. Another one is 0, another one is 3, another one is 2, another one is 10. These are, you have how many students do you have in your class? How many students do you have in your class? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students. Okay? Now, when you have been asking to find out the what? The mean. You apply what my brother will say. Your name is? Ernest. So Ernest was saying that you take into consideration all the numbers. You add all the numbers. To mean that the mean is symbolized, most of the time in statistics, the mean is symbolized by X bar. Simple. Wherever you find X bar, most of the time it means the mean. So to interpret, now look at the way I'm writing. Hello? 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 Those who wake up early in the morning, can you stand up? Let us stand, let us stand. I can see some people are now. Let us stand. Stand together. You are not teachers.
Premiumbeat.com.
Dr. Odette Mugiraneza cooperated the presentation made by Dr. Irene and Dr. Jean-François on quantitative data analysis by providing participants with further practical activities in order to familiarize them with the use of SPSS.
For instance, using Excel, SAS, there are many programs. But today let us focus on SPSS because it is a tool that is most used by many people, right? Everyone who is starting to analyze the data, he or she uses SPSS. Okay? Yes. As Dr. said, is a statistical package for social science that is created to analyze complex data. There are data that cannot be analyzed manually, right? In that case, we use a statistical program. Now let's go to, what is this? Before making any analysis or before conducting any analysis, you have to think about your research questions. To revisit your research question.
That's very important.
What was your research question? What was your problem? What are you looking for? Right. I assume you went to the field and you collected your data, right? Yes. You have a questionnaires field data, right? But before entering your data, you have to do what is called the questionnaire editing, right? You are coming straight from the field one. You have your questionnaire filled with it. What to do first is to edit your questionnaire. Check if they are missing values, right? Check if the values are answered correctly. After checking, you start creating a baseline. If they are primary data, you will need to enter them in SPSS. Okay? If there is secondary data, it will be saved somewhere and you will need to transfer it to the program for analysis. Okay? Let us assume you have collected our primary data. Right? Yes. Okay? Open your SPSS. Yes. Our numbers okay, let us go to the next thing. Remember to save, please. To save. To save.
In his session with master's students, Prof. Francois Niragire provided insights on SPSS as applied in research oriented in social sciences. He made a review of measurement levels with reference to properties and meaning of numbers assigned to observations for each item. He also made an overview of levels of measurement in statistics like nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio.
Where there is no intrinsic natural order, so they are nominal. Level of monthly income, when you say low income, medium, and high income, there is an order. Though they are both categorical, this one is ordinal variable. Then for interval, year, degrees, that is the temperature. And then the ratio is very easy. So the height, the length, the distance, and so on. So let us move directly to the SPSS. And if you have SPSS installed, then we can you can start it. Can you see any icon on your desktop, or you go to start menu? Okay, let me show you. So you want to start SPSS. You can check whether on your desktop there is an icon on which you double click. Now suppose you have your questionnaire, you are from the field and you have your hard copy, and on your questionnaire you have, for example, the variable monthly income, for example. Yeah. We are going to learn how to define the variables in SPSS. So we are going to learn how to create that. That's creating variables. Very quickly, because it is one day, isn't it? So take more advantage. Your SPSS has started. When you open your SPSS, it opens in the window that is called Data Editor window. Data Editor. Yes. Data Editor means you can put, you can create, and so on. So you are in the Data Editor window, you can read it from this bar, the title bar. So in this Data Editor window, that is where you shall do all your variables and data manipulations. That is where the tools are located.
Dr. Gabriel Nizeyimana and Dr. John Leonard Buhigiro brainstormed participants about quantitative research design and qualitative research design, qualitative data collection instruments or tools, among others.
Qualitative data take the form of interview transcripts. You have transcribed, you have so many pages on your table. Apart from those interview transcripts, you can have documents. A document is also data. Huh? Dr. Lona is a historian. Huh? Yes, he can say much on these documents. It's better to record. Images. You go there somewhere, you take a photo, you have an image. That image is a qualitative data. I was talking about the kind of qualitative data that you can collect in your field. They can be interview transcripts, they can be documents, they can be images or videos. Those are the data that you can collect from your field research.
What you should bear in mind is that qualitative research doesn't mean absence of numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Say 10 out of 15. But these are
agrees, said that, I often view that things are like this.
But
you present this qualitatively. You cannot say, if you say, let's say you have given a questionnaire to 10 people. Among these 10, 6 said are positive. Will you say 60%? Qualitative, statistically, it was what I said before. In statistics, it is not significant. This number, 60% are positive about this.
Actually, sometimes I used to see some dissertation for undergraduate students. You can notice that when they are presenting the respondent, they can do a table of 25 respondents and they put male, female, and they calculate
90% are female. Huh? This percentage is not meaningful. Rather say, out of 10 interviewees, 7 are of the view that
7 out of 10. That is the qualitative description of your numbers. Yes.
Shutterstock Music.
The presentation made by Prof. Eugene Ndabaga together with Prof. Evode Mukama provided PhD students with insights on qualitative data analysis, including the use of tools like NVivo, etc.
Now you've got that whole chunk of information, that pair of interview you recorded and you wrote. Remember, this one is what's called memos. Those even if you're recording something, you have to take some notes. That's what you call memos. Now that on your desk, what's next? That most boring part is said. As I told you, these mathematics people are like actually today. The moment you put how do you call these tablets? Is it tablets? Where they put information on the browser, automatically create it.
Gap. That's what you don't have. That's the exact and so forth. Then I will use this this methodology. Otherwise, if you formulate the research questions before you go to the deep, it can't work. So let's move. So the methodology, I said I used the interviews, I used a survey, I used also a survey questions. So I corrected some questions. I used the questionnaire to correct some questions, and I set up a test a simple test to understand the correlation between maybe student preferences in the chemical bonding, comparing male and female students, and some achievement. If I want to measure the hands-on skills, this higher order thinking.
Dr. Anne-Marie Kagwesaje held a participative session with PhD students that discussed academic writing of thesis or dissertation. Throughout the discussions, Dr. Anne-Marie brought to the attention of the participants a number of things they need to consider when writing for publication.
So you need to know, you need to figure out your research area and find journals that publish in your research area. That will be point number 1. So we are talking about all these aspects before we actually talk about our article that we are going to write and the structure, because these are preliminary things that you should always consider before spending much time on your paper. Otherwise, if you start writing without having the journal in mind, you might find that the format requirement will require you to go through the paper again and again. So, how do you link your work? How do you link your work to other work in your area? You need to do a thorough literature search. When you go through the literature in your area, you will definitely find a link between your paper, your article, your new knowledge that you want to contribute with what other people have been doing. And in order to be updated, you know, in research, you communicate new information. In order to keep being updated, you always need to look for current work in your field. I think it's not advisable. I should really discourage you to use articles that are more than 10 years old, unless you need to recall some sort of a historical background. But if you read up-to-date articles, even your publisher will know that, you know, this person, this scholar is aware of the current developments in this particular research area.
As you are saying, actually, good journals actually highlight the use of the current published work. So those predatory journals actually don't even consider if it is the old, if it is the so.
in such kind of area.
That very article that you funded has something of quality from what you said. It should have been used by other researchers in the same field. So it's better to use those research which are current, but which use that research that we find of good quality.
Suppose your work or your research is in an area where you cannot get many articles, many current articles, but you find that there is some old articles, so-called old, which are many in the area, and you want to use them. So will it be a taboo to use those old articles because you find that there are very, very few new articles in the area? Or you use the few if they are like 4, and you rely on the 4 articles which are new, but you ignore the ones which are old. You say 10, more than 10 years old, but they are there. There are so many. What can you advise with such?
Yes, let us conclude on this. Number one, by telling me you cannot say that a paper that was published after a strict peer review process does not have anything to share with the world. You get that? As long as it is published, it means that the quality assurance in terms of content is there. Okay? It contributes. Number two, why do we put the focus on recent publications? Your colleague said it clearly. Remember, research builds upon what has been done before.
Yeah.
But telling me you will not publish your paper without, if your paper was published in 2012, or let's say 2020, okay, you will build upon the papers that were published in 2019, 2018, 2017, you see? And even all those papers you are referring to, they also refer to the previous ones. And the paper you will write in 2024 will build upon this one that you produced in 2020. So this means, in a way, with referring to the recent, the update publications, you also refer to the old ones. Did you get that? So this means drawing upon the recent publications will show that this person knows what is happening in his or her research area. And this takes me to his question, that if you don't manage to get references in your area, is that possible?
I say,
can you fail to get
I'm saying there are very few references. You find like 5 papers.
Yeah, well, I think with your question, your question would need an individualized answer. Yes, only when you show that, this is my area and I have tried to look for recent publications and I could not find it. But otherwise, all the journals of the world that you will find, at least they publish twice a year. They publish twice a year. And the minimum papers they can publish is beyond 5 anyway. We can even start with our Rwanda journals. Our Rwanda journals of the University of Rwanda, they don't publish less than 5 papers. They publish more. And I don't know what happens on the ground, but they are supposed to produce 4 issues per year. 4 issues. So this means at least If the journal is not that prolific, at least they can produce once a year. But so this means each year you have at least 5 publications. So if you need to publish in your research area and you have a problem in finding new publications, please talk to your supervisor, please talk to your research group. I'm sure perhaps you have got different research groups in your department, but you cannot fail to get recent publications. So now we move towards publishers or readers look for in your articles. And we look at all this so that you know what to concentrate on when you write your articles. Do you get that? Well, the readers or publishers will look at the new knowledge that you bring in. Are you addressing an important problem? Is there any new material that you are bringing in? Is there any new methodology that you are bringing in? Is your article easy to read? Is it clear? Is it clearly written? Do you have probably new references that could lead about the arguments that you are making? Then is the content in line with the scope of the journal? So basically, this is what the readers or the publishers will look for. Otherwise, if it's just existing knowledge, if you have just reinvented the wheel, if nothing new transpires from your article, then the publishers or the readers will not be interested. So please, when you when you write your articles, know the new aspects that you want to communicate.